All right, a little toast, a little first sip here.
Cheers. Cheers.
Hey,
Sounds good.
everybody. Welcome to the Thirsty Professional. This is a place where we grab a bevy, we ditch the BS, and we get real about careers, purpose, and passion. I'm your host, Beth Ann Campbell. I'm a former corporate queen, now full-time author and podcaster, always a badass. Author of the award-winning Where the Hell is My Bacon?, which is a true story of how an innocent pork product helped a stressed-out technology team find their voices. So for all of you corporate people who are struggling, great book for you. Happy Good Friday to those who are of the faith. If you're out there watching live, please let us know you're here in the comments. We don't know you're here unless you put a comment in. And we love to talk to the audience. Let us know where you're from. Most importantly, what are you drinking? If you're watching the replay, please give us a hashtag replay. And of course, all of you, make sure to let us know if you have any questions or feedback so we can address it during the live stream or after, as the case may be. Oh my God. I had to go pee like twice this morning before this because I was so excited. My very, 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 very special guest on the Thirsty Professional is Seamus Corry. And I know I always have very special guests. And then, truthfully, I'm just so lucky in that way. But this is just like, oh, for me. So Seamus has one of the most unique journeys that I have ever encountered. When I first met him this was on a networking call from the Founders Network, which you have heard me mention before. I knew immediately I had to have him on the show. And I'm not even joking. As soon as he started talking in this little, 6-minute breakout room, I just knew, oh my God. His unique journey and his raw candor are exactly why I wanted to start this podcast. And I can already see the fan club coming in for Seamus on the comments. So imagine that you were groomed from birth to be a priest. Your path was laid out before you for your entire life with great expectation. And then when you finally, after all of these years, you reach your destination, that expectation is shattered. Now you have to start over. You have to rediscover yourself. You have to learn to be an entirely different person than you thought you were, that you've been trained and groomed to be. A type of person that you don't even know how to be. And you will not believe this story. It's really amazing. Seamus is now father, grandfather, podcaster, best-selling co-author, and a skilled well-being and mental health consultant. I am beyond excited to bring this dance of light in the universe to the Thirsty Professional. Please welcome Seamus Corry. Seamus, welcome.
Good afternoon, Beth. What an introduction.
Good day. We say good day because I don't know what time it is. It's everywhere time.
It's afternoon time here. It's Good Friday afternoon time. And to be honest with you, personally, it's not Good Friday for me. It's a great Friday for me because I get to spend a precious hour in your company, Beth. And thank you.
I'm so honored.
On the show.
You're so welcome. It is my honor, and thank you for playing the game with the hat. You rock a hat. I will say, not everybody rocks a hat, Seamus. You rock a hat.
Yeah,
it is a good one for you.
This is the one. This is the one, Beth.
What are you drinking today?
I am drinking a Pepsi Max today.
What is a Pepsi Max? Is that like Max caffeine?
It's a soft drink. Yeah, it's just a soft drink. That's all I'm on today. It's nearly Easter. It's going to be Easter Sunday in a couple of days, and then
you got to get that energy up.
Things are going to get serious, and the lager's going to come back out. So I've been teetotal. I've been off the alcohol for to celebrate the Lenten festival.
Sure.
With a small little wee break in service last night. I had a half a pina colada last night.
No one needs to know.
No, nobody needs to know. We won't tell anybody, But yes, come Easter Sunday, eggs are going to be broken and lager is going to be drank. So in the meantime.
Right. Does your family, do you do the Easter Sunday feast?
We do the Easter Sunday feast.
And what's the staple?
I think it's going to be Easter eggs this year, actually. I just have a feeling it's going to be Easter eggs.
You don't have like ham or...
maybe chicken, maybe chicken a little bit of ham with a real dollop of Easter eggs thrown in for good measure, yeah.
I'll go with Easter eggs. I love eggs.
A lot of chocolate.
Honestly,
a lot of chocolate.
Even though I wrote a book that has bacon in the name, if you were to ask me if I could only eat one like protein or one main thing for the rest of my life, I would go with eggs because you can make them so many different ways. that you just never get tired of them. So I don't know.
Can I share something really amazing with
Yes,
you?
of course. Yes.
I was out walking my beautiful dog Flora this morning. I was out on the walk.
Flora.
Flora, she's a King Charles Cavalier, and she's absolutely beautiful. Um, and while I was walking, I met one of my close neighbours and said, "Hi, how are you doing? Hope you have a great Easter. Right? What are you doing for the weekend?" I says, "I'm going to crack open an Easter egg on Sunday and have some Cocoa Pops in it from a cereal." So he's going to put Cocoa Pops in a half an egg. This is going to be his bowl with some milk, and he's going, "What a beautiful idea, by the way!
Yeah.
Chocolate
Well,
on
Cocoa
chocolate.
Puffs. You
It
know,
works for me. It works for me."
I, I love cereal too. Cereal might be I don't eat a lot of cereal because it's very high carb, and I have to, I gotta, keep the keep the figure in check. But I love cereal. I love it. Cocoa
Yeah,
Puffs, yes, please more. Please, sir, may I
excellent.
have some more?
Please,
Yes.
may I have some more Cocoa Puffs? Yeah,
All right. So, just real quick, you live near Manchester in the
I do.
UK.
I
Yes.
do.
So,
Yeah.
tell me, if I was visiting Manchester, what is the one tourist spot that is a must see in the area?
Well, can I just explain to you exactly where I'm living
Sure.
in Manchester? Um, I live between two camps. In Manchester, as is the case in Glasgow, there are two big football teams in Manchester: Manchester City and Manchester United. Two
United
big, yeah,
from Ted Lasso. I remember that from Ted Lasso.
yeah. Two
Oh,
big, massive international football teams.
yeah.
Now, where I'm living is right in the middle of no man's land between these two rival camps. So,
Nice.
in order to balance equanimity this afternoon, I'm going to suggest that if you're visiting our fair capital of Manchester, then I would say to you, you have to visit Old Trafford, which is the United ground, and you have to visit, the Etihad, which is City's ground. And as a possible relaxation afternoon, probably, I don't like it, but the Trafford Centre is one of these big malls, these big shopping
Yeah.
centres that have been wonderfully created. But I would also maybe consider going for a wee little barge on the canal. We've got beautiful canal
Aw.
system here in Manchester. You could get afternoon tea, or you could even get an evening meal while watching the world go by very slowly on a barge.
Aw.
So
Well,
we do have our spots. We do have our
balance.
spots. It's
Got a little
balanced.
balance.
Yeah, and if you want to funk it up a bit, there's our Northern Quarter and our Music Quarter and the Irish Quarter. So there's all these various quarters in Manchester. So much to see and do in this wonderful city.
Well, you've heard it here, folks. Well, fun fact, because I did look up a little bit about Manchester. We were talking about eggs and stuff like and bacon. That the modern vegetarian movement. I don't know if you knew this, Seamus. The modern vegetarian movement was founded. Of course, vegetarians have been around for eons, but the modern movement was founded in Manchester in 1847 by a man whose name was William Cowherd. It might have
Wow.
been pronounced differently, but it's Cowherd, like he was a herder of cows. So there you go.
Wow. I did not know that. I mean, new fun fact for me today in terms of the next pub quiz I'm going to be part of.
Everybody's got some claim to fame. So, hey, audience, who I'm going to talk to in just a second here, if you have some place in your town where you're in right now, or maybe your home city or a home place where you were born that's a claim to fame, let me know what it is in the comments. I was born in Jackson, Michigan, in the U.S., and our claim to fame was commonly known as the Michigan Prison. So, yes, we have a correctional facility that and signs that say "Do not pick up hitchhikers." So, my little town now in Stanton, Virginia, is the birthplace of the 28th U.S. President Woodrow Wilson, who's not my favorite president, kind of racist, and he helped with put the income tax into place. So not a big fan of him. Anyway, let's go see who is calling. Oh my goodness, jeez, I said your fan club was going to show up. We have
They did.
Carolyn Smith.
They did.
Carolyn Smith from Colorado. So we've got some U.S. people. So football, when we talk about Manchester United and Manchester City, that's soccer to us. And by the way, if you've not seen Ted Lasso out there, such a good show. Should really watch it. It's really good. Hi, Carolyn, and thanks for joining. Doris Walsh, our
Hello,
favorite Doris
Doris.
Walsh. Doris, who had not one, not two, but three amazing hats a few weeks ago on the Thirsty Professional. Hello to two of the most badasses at LinkedIn at the moment. Here with an Earl Grey tea. Love it. My good friend Mike Goggin. Oh, Mike Goggin from Arizona. He's in Phoenix. I've heard from my other good friend Scott Smith, who was on last week, that it was perhaps getting up into the 90s already in Phoenix, which is what is that? 30, around 30
Wow.
Celsius for you folks, and yeah, real warm. Mike, always a pleasure to have you. You know how much I love you. Carolyn says he is amazing. Truth. Trisha Lewis, hi y'all. I'm here in not very sunny Bournemouth,
Oh,
UK. I'm sorry, Trisha.
I feel it for you, Tricia. We've got rain here in Manchester as well. I feel it
Mhm.
for you.
Stella is here. Stella Scott's here from Sweden. I'm here making a latte right now. That's just one of many reasons I love you, Stella. Carolyn Smith says, yay. She's drinking water. Very healthy. I appreciate that.
Well done, Carla.
I
She's
think
my
this is,
sister, by the way. She's my amazing sister,
oh,
and fellow best-selling co-author on the Rattle the Wake series, Volume 11. So
that's
great
awesome.
to, yeah, I love,
Congratulations on that one.
yeah, I love Carolyn to bits. Love you, sister.
Awesome. Is she like your literal sister, or is she
No, she's
your
just my
your
spirit sister.
your
Yeah,
spiritual sister? I love that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, she's my spirit sister. She
that's
is.
awesome.
But yeah, we shared a wonderful journey together during that book, and Karen's just amazing. You should have her on your show. She's got an amazing story. Amazing story.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to connect if I'm not already connected with Carolyn. I'm going to do that. Carolyn says, I'm sure this one's for you, Seamus. She says,
Yeah.
"What? What about Guinness?"
Yeah, Guinness and it's going to happen, Caroline. Maybe not on Sunday, but it's definitely going to happen. It's definitely going to happen sometime during April.
Stella says, "I love that you're using the word groomed. So many of us are, yet don't understand that's what happened." Yeah, I mean,
Mm.
yeah, I mean, trained is probably not a good word. I like groomed because it just sort of speaks of maybe it's just expected, right? It's
Yeah.
not like you go, "Hey, I think I would like to learn this." It's accepted.
Yeah.
Eileen Pizzi is peeking in with her coffee, probably from New Jersey. This is where she lives. Trisha Lewis, we have in so she, we're in Bournemouth. Bournemouth. I hope I say it right. I'm so sorry, Trisha. I know I always crucify it, but she said we have Mary Shelley's grave. So Mary Shelley is the author of Frankenstein, right? Or if
It
I'm not.
is. Yeah, we
I
have.
believe
Yeah,
so. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Carolyn, our claim to fame, the Denver Broncos.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! And let's see. Trisha Lewis. Carolyn Stella says to Trisha Lewis sounds like a must. I would love to see Mary Shelley's grave. I like having some good female authors.
Yeah.
And Carolyn is thanking you for. She says, "I love you very much, Seamus Corry, my brother. I
My
love it.
number
I love
one
it.
fan. Number one
Isn't
fan.
networking amazing?
Yeah,
Isn't connection amazing? I
100%.
mean, you and I
It,
were just talking about, we met, and
yeah.
I've said so many times, the first time I heard you in that little breakout room, and I thought, oh my God, yes, my people, right?
You are my people. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
You're my
just
tribe. You're my tribe.
all right. So Seamus, let's dig in. I want to talk
Let's
about
dive
your
in.
amazing journey because I know that's what a lot of people are here to hear this incredible story. But let's talk about. I want to start off with what are you doing now? Like, what is making your heart sing about your career or your passion these days? What are you what are you doing to fill your
Yeah.
own?
Yeah, I find myself in a very privileged, honored position that I get to spend time with people every day and every week, supporting wellness, reducing stress, and enabling people to create the best work-life balance that they have, and can create for themselves, right? Because we live in an extremely stressful, stressed out world, and I would say I was thinking about this the other day actually, Beth, and I think I put the well back into wellness, right? Because sometimes we forget who we are, and we are actually human beings. That's our definition. We are human beings, but we end up being human doings, right? Because we end up just doing all the time, all the time. So by focusing on our being and our humanity and our wellness, which I enable and support clients to do. It makes a huge difference. Light bulbs go off. People create better lives for themselves, and to be in that position where I can walk that journey with somebody is truly a privileged position, and being able to amplify that to work with organizations in the same way is a truly incredible experience, and one that I really treasure, and that makes my heart sing. That makes my heart sing right now.
Mm. I love it. I also love human doings versus human beings.
Yeah,
I'm going to create some merch for the Thirsty Professional because everybody who comes on here, Doris had a great quote that I'm not going to be, maybe she'll put it in the comments for me, but it was something about, um, you get shit done and there's another turd on the way or something, something like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
And the human beings versus human doings. Why do you think that in your as you now work with people, which is just when you guys hear the story, you're going to be like, oh my god, this is so incredible that now Seamus is out here helping people with their mental health and their well-being. What do you think is the reason why people are challenged so much with finding that balance, that work-life balance? I know I did, but
yeah. And I think we sometimes define ourselves by what we do rather than who we are, right? And we define ourselves by how much we produce or how well we perform, rather than looking at ourselves innately, the wonderful people and the wonderful human beings that we are, the skills and talents and abilities that we all have. And sometimes in the heat of the furnace of work and productivity and performance, we forget all that. We leave it to one side, we ignore it, for the betterment of somebody else's paycheck or somebody else's productivity or somebody else's performance, not realizing that actually it starts, begins, and ends with us. And if we don't look after ourselves, if we don't have a sense of embedded wellness in our own lives, how on earth do you think we're able to look after anybody else, or perform well, or perform productively, or support ourselves? Or we need that sense of we need that sense of mission and vision and value and purpose for ourselves, to innately feel that, so we can give it out to other people. And that I think is where I'm coming from, certainly from my own personal experience, and that's where I derive my own mission, vision, value, and purpose from.
oh my God. If anybody's out there listening but not watching, I am refraining from all of my, yes, oh my God, hallelujah, yes, everything you said. I mean, as a former corporate prisoner, captive, queen,
Hmm.
I can totally relate to the work defining myself. And I think that's okay to find pleasure in your work, but when it becomes your all,
Yeah,
then you know nothing else, right? I mean, oh, this is resonating so much with me.
good.
Okay, let's go back, Seamus, because this is just such an incredible story.
Yeah,
Let's go back to your youth
yeah,
and start talking about your journey. You're very young. Tell me a little bit about your family dynamic, and tell me a little bit about this, when you maybe first realized that, oh, I'm going to be a priest.
yeah. Um, First of all, I want to say, honestly, truthfully, and authentically, I love my mum and dad. They're both past now in my life, but I love them to bits, and we've always had a wonderful, deep, wonderful relationship. Um, for me, I was born into a world of the 1960s, the latter 1960s. I was born in 1969, so you can kind of work out my age from there. I was born into a wonderful family of four brothers and one sister, a small rural village nestled deep in the heart of the west of Ireland. It was termed the sleeping village, Beth. So the reason why it was a sleepy village was people used to wake up in the morning, go to work during the day, vacate the village, and then come back, and sleep in the village at night. So it became known as the sleepy village. Uh, The name of my village was 6 Mile Bridge, or in Irish Gaelic, it was pronounced Drogheda Downey Garney, which is the bridge over the River Garney in the English equivalent. And it was a small village, 900 people. We had a shop, post office. Your idyllic, your idyllic
Yeah,
kind of vision of rural Ireland back in the
that's what I
1960s.
I thought. It sounds very idyllic.
That's what we had. It was a rural village, 900 people. Our church was at the center of everything that we did. Our church was at the center of the village, so we lived our lives by the toll of the bell and by the passing of the seasons. We lived our lives by the ritual of Catholicism. So I was born into that environment. Now, the story of my birth was revealed sometime later to me. But I had to, I was born a little bit, as they say, premature back in the 1960s, in 1969, in August 1969. And at that time, prematurity and support for prematurity and premature babies in Ireland wasn't that great.
Yeah.
We didn't have the best health service, and any baby born prematurely, there was a 50-50 chance that some premature babies would not make the grade or would not cut the mustard and would unfortunately die. Um, and this was the case certainly with me as I understood it. That I was born a little bit earlier. Everything wasn't where it should be. I was, immediately taken to intensive care. I was put in an incubator, and I kind of my mother and father were kind of given the news that
Mm.
there was a 50-50 chance that I may not make it. My dad, both my parents were devout Catholics, and my dad especially very, very devout in terms of his faith. And he left the hospital that particular evening after speaking to the consultant, and he went into his local church and basically had a chat with God. Just had a chat with God, had a straight up, okay, man,
Understandable. Yeah.
yeah, okay, man, I'm here. This is the way it's going down, right? If you can cure my son, I'll give my son back to you, and I'll hand him back over to you as a priest.
Oh. So this was really kind of a promise from your father
This was
of
a promise. This was the
yeah.
deal. This was a deal 101 with God and my dad.
Wow.
You're doing 1-on-1. And, needless to say, I did recover. I made a full recovery. I was released from hospital, and pretty much from the get go, I was chosen to be a Roman Catholic priest from henceforth. And,
Were you aware of this when you were very young? Was that
no,
something that
no,
no?
no, absolutely not. No, no, no. But I was aware as I became older and I went through primary school. I was aware of what my mission was. I was aware that I was something special. I was something different. I had a kind of unique calling from God. This was the whole kind of language that was used around me. That I was special. That I was different. That
How
I
does
had
that feel for you as a young child? Is that pressure? Does that make you feel a little like, "Hey," or is it
a,
confusing? I mean, what is it? What's going through your head?
it's a mixture of a whole load of feelings, from confusion to feeling really honored and privileged to feeling fearful and anxious to feeling worried, and
Yeah.
as a young lad growing up in rural Ireland in that village, you, you didn't have you didn't have anywhere to hide. You didn't have anywhere to hide. So everybody knew, the community knew, the
Mhm.
cows in the field knew, the birds of the air knew, everybody knew, everybody knew,
Your
everybody,
schoolmates?
schoolmates, everybody knew,
And
everybody knew.
how did they treat you in or was it just not even really talked about?
It wasn't really even talked about. It was just accepted. It was just accepted. It kind of came down the line from my dad, to the parish, to the community. Everybody knew. So everywhere I went, I walked
Yeah.
down the street. Oh, there Seamus is going to be a priest. There Seamus is going to be a priest. So that was, at 4, 5, 6, 7. When other young guys my age were out playing cowboys and Indians, I was practicing how to celebrate the sacraments.
So it was so your upbringing was different then from your mates, from your brothers and
It was.
sisters?
we were a house of faith. We were a home of faith, and faith was extremely important. My dad had a connection to the local church. He was a clerk or an elder of the church, and he supported the church and worked as a volunteer sacristan or clerk. So he worked closely with the minister and worked closely with the clergy there, and pretty much we would have the clergy up to our house every Sunday for morning breakfast, and so we had that interconnection all the time, and it was the tradition in Ireland at that particular time that. And it was the considered tradition that if you had a son a priest and a daughter a nun and a cow in the field, it was considered a really powerful blessing for an Irish family.
Did
So,
you have a did they have a daughter as a nun? Was your sister
no,
no?
no, no. I was the first of my kind. I was the
Yeah.
first of my kind, and because of that, everything was kind of diverted to me to support that cause, and resources were, and finances were tight. But I was, when it came to supporting me later on, I was given a degree of finance, and I was given a degree of support that my other siblings didn't get. And as you can
Mm.
appreciate, that created a lot of jealousy and anger and
Oh, yeah,
frustration
and pressure also,
and
even if you're
pressure.
not even fully aware of it yet, that's gotta be I mean, you're in the nuances of being
Yeah.
in that situation where you're hearing it, you're experiencing it, you may not quite understand it, but it's I imagine
So
there is some pressure in there.
there is, and I had this acceptance. I had this level of acceptance that, yeah, this was me. This is who I am. This is who I define myself as,
Yeah.
because this is what I was told. This is the story I was told. You had a special arrival. You were miraculously cured by God. God wants you to become His priest, and you have that special connection with God. That was the story that I was
Yeah.
told, and that was the story that I was led to believe.
So you're a child, you have this going on around you, life's different. Are you going at what point are you separated and so are you going to normal school? Are you
Going to normal school, went
normal
to normal mixed primary school, went to normal mixed secondary school. So I had a wonderful experience. And the interesting thing about my secondary school experience was you know, uh, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 is the kind of the age of exploration, right? Where you're exploring yourself, you're
Mhm.
getting to know yourself a little bit more, and you're putting yourself out there a little bit more, and you're trying to make connections with the opposite sex, and trying to have relationships and the normal stuff that happens. And I remember I was going out for a while. I was in the middle of a kind of uh, relationship, as it were, with one of my schoolmates. And she was a wonderful girl, and we went out for. When I say went out, we didn't kind of go out, but we went to the movies together and all that kind of stuff. We'd held hands in school and all that kind of stuff. So very, very innocent. But about 6 months into that kind of relationship, she completely ghosted me.
Hmm.
Beth, she completely ghosted me. Completely. Literally, if she saw me coming down the path, she would go the other way.
What do you think happened? Do you think somebody said something to her?
Well, I didn't know till many, many, many years later, and we'll kind of get to that. But I met her out socially one night. I says, "Look, can you explain to me what happened during that period we were at school?" Oh, she says, "Yeah, I fully explain it." But in essence, your dad came and spoke to my mum, and basically said, it would be now better
Well,
if
sure,
you
yeah.
if your daughter didn't have any further contact with my son, because he's very special and he's going to be a priest.
Is that something that at this time so I assume
I'm
you're a
in my
teenager at
teens.
this point.
Yeah,
Are
I
you
mean,
are you aware of this conflict of, like, I'm having feelings? I mean, you've gone through puberty, your hormones are probably raging, and
yeah,
you're having these relationships, but also, are you aware that once I'm it's done?
yeah, and it was probably soon after that experience that I thought, well, obviously relationships aren't for me because I'm going to be a priest, right? And nobody would want really to go out with me anyway because you know I'm I'm
Because
God.
dad's going to come in and
But no,
he's
well,
going to
I saw myself
ruin
as
my
God.
game.
Well, I saw God's hard property. You can't compete with God,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So so that I kind of again accepted that, even though my heart was broken at that particular time, and I didn't have
Hmm.
an opportunity to express that till much later on in my life.
I love that you at least had the closure on that with
Yeah,
that
I
person
did.
that you were
I,
able. Yeah.
I did, and when I did, I went through a real period of anger and frustration that we'll get to, but at that time it really broke my heart. It really did.
Yeah. Okay, so you're a raging teenager, but your game's being you got your dad's not your wingman. He's coming in. He's interfering.
Yeah,
Um, at what point are you then officially? There's got to be some point where you were okay. I'm done now with the normal stuff with my studies, but
yeah,
now it's time. Tell
yeah.
me
It's
about that.
it, it's time to move. Yeah. So on the 4th of September 1987, there are some dates you don't ever forget, and the 4th of September 1987 was the date of separation, the date of launch into my next part of my career. I'd finished secondary school in the July of that year. I got reasonable good grades. And again, I didn't need to push myself at school because it was a done deal. It was a done deal. I wasn't going on to any other position other than that of the
Yeah.
training and studying for the priesthood, and that had been accepted. And I went through a kind of small process during that summer of '87, where I had to be kind of interviewed by the parish priest, and my mum and dad had to be interviewed, and so that the diocese of which I was going to join up with was going to sponsor my college place, really. So just 16 in the August, and off went, packed my bags. Mum and dad drove me for 3.5 hours up to the National Seminary in Maynooth. And on the 4th of September 1987, I arrived under the medieval archway of St. Patrick's College, Maynooth, with 121 other young lambs like myself who entered the gates for the first time. And at that point, at some stage in the evening, my mum and dad left, and I was in the hands of the Catholic Church from there on for the next 7 years.
Tell me about when you're walking through the door for that first time. So even though you've been groomed your whole life for this, what
Hmm.
is going through your head? Is it fear? Is it acceptance that you've had? Is it
Yeah,
excitement? What's going through your head?
it's excitement, it's trepidation. Obviously, I'm away from home, so there's that whole thing. Where am I going to live? Where am I going to sleep? What's my room going to be like?
Oh, yeah.
Who am I going to meet? Am I going to meet anybody? Am I going to make friends? The whole load of questions that you have. But also there was that confidence that I grew up loving the Catholic Church. I grew up loving it for what the church stood for. I grew up, being an integral part of my church at home, and I expected the same approach. A bigger approach, but a loving, supportive community which would nurture me, take care of me, love me, support me, and enable me to be the best priest that I could be. That's what I expected going through that door on the 4th of September 1987. What I got was completely different.
Yeah. So you're not a priest. What happened?
Well, for the next 7 odd years, and with all due respect to the Catholic Church, the experience I had, and it wasn't everybody's experience. Some people had worse, but for me, I experienced a really institutional psychological torture for the next 7 years,
How
which
soon was it? How soon after you walked through those doors did you realize that this was not what you expected?
um, um, I there's there's a part, when you watch movies about the Second World War, and it particularly about the horrific experience the Jewish people had at the hands of the German Gestapo and the German army forces, especially the arrival at the concentration camps. And they were all separated out, and all their property was separated, and all that kind of stuff. I had a similar experience in the sense that I brought stuff with me that would give me comfort and give me joy and give me that sense of security. And as soon as my parents left, they were literally not gone down the road 5 minutes, and the big doors were shut. The look of smiles changed to looks of real profound discipline. And basically, we were taken into a room with our belongings, and everything was taken away from us.
Oh my God.
Everything was packed away.
That
Everything
has
was.
to be shocking that
Yeah,
you have this expectation. Maybe you're confused. Yes, of course. Just like you go off to college, you don't know what to expect. There's a little fear. But
yeah.
then, I mean, Lewis is right. This should be a film. I'm envisioning this, bye bye parents, and then chunk, and then
We look after your
and
child.
suddenly you're
See
in a
you
room with,
later. Take care. We look after these. You go into a room.
we'll take good care of him.
We'll take good care of
He's
him,
doing
right?
God's work.
Into that room and strip basically was the kind of, right, this is where to take that off, get rid of that. You're not getting that, you're not using that, you're not putting that there, that is going away, this is inappropriate. So it's pretty much just rifling through your stuff as if it was their property, right? Just
So-
rifling through your stuff as if it was their property, right? And then my feeling went from, and the first word in my head was, "What the fuck's happening here? What is this place? Where,
Yeah.
where am I? This is not the church I grew up in. This is not the church I was part of for 16 years of my life. What is that? What's happening here?" And then we're all frog marched, up to our rooms, and the rooms they put us in, Beth, right? The rooms were 17th century medieval cells. Really, that's what it was. You
Like
had one
stone walls, damp floors in
stone walls, damp floors, a kind of hay straw bed, a sink that just about worked, but there was no hot water. There was no TV. There was no video. There was no communication with the outside world. You can only write by letter that was monitored, for the first month that you were in there. So they read all your mail. So it was like
this sounds like prison.
it was prison.
Yeah.
It was prison. It was prison, and it was traumatic. And that was just the opening salvo. It got much worse. Got much worse. For the first 2 years of my life, I went through a philosophical kind of education, where the existence of God was denied. And
Wait, denied by
yeah, yeah,
your elders, your mentors,
yeah,
your
yeah. So
the
a
people that are
whole
instructed to help you to develop your relationship with God so that you can preach it to others is saying what
well,
there's
it was kind of pitched like, God is just a psychological construct. Discuss, discuss.
okay. And
You
you're
know,
16, 17, 18 years old here.
yeah, with this loving belief that God is everywhere, and God is love, and God is this, and God is that,
Hmm.
and you go into a room full of, with a tutor at the top who's saying, "No, God doesn't exist. You're talking shite, man. You're talking rubbish. How
I
how
mean,
how
what
how
a
do you know
weird
God? How do you know God exists? Right? Is it just what?
it's like a brainwashing.
It
It's
is like a
almost this is weird.
brainwashing. It is like a brainwashing. I had this for 2 years, and as I said, 121 people joined with me. By the end of the first week, that was reduced down to 90, because
Hmm.
11, like 20. So you couldn't really make friends with anybody. You couldn't really connect with anybody, because if you did, if you went down to breakfast the next morning, chances are they
You
were
could be gone.
probably gone anyway.
Yeah.
They were gone, right? And you were caught between a rock and a hard place. And I thought about leaving many times, and we were told, right? We were told, You can leave anytime you want if you don't like the shit, right? We could leave, but where would you go? Where would you
Right.
go?
So tell me what happens if you had decided to do that and say, "Okay, I'm going back home." Could you have even gone back home?
No, no, because you would be persona non grata. You would let your family down. You would let your community down. You would let your dices down. You would let your country down. You would let yourself down. You would have nowhere to go.
God down because God did this for you because he
Yeah,
performed a
look,
miracle and
yeah, look how much we invested in you. Look how much God loves you, and you letting the whole side down, man.
so did you stay for the whole period of
I
time?
I did 2 years. Uh, I did 2 years. I did my first 2 years. Finished my philosophy, and at the end of my philosophy program, I said that my head had enough. I was literally burnt out from top to bottom.
Mm.
I could no longer stand it. Now, the interesting thing about the location where I was in terms of the seminary, there was so many psychological forms of torture. It was incredible, right? But where Maynooth, and you can Google this, where Maynooth, the seminary Maynooth stands, is right in the middle of the biggest national university of Ireland,
Like a public university?
like a public mixed
Oh.
university,
Ooh. Uh-oh.
literally over the road from where the seminary was. Now, we were told you can engage but don't engage. You can connect but don't connect. You can get involved but don't get involved because that's evil over there.
Did you abide?
This is pure. Of course I didn't. Of course I didn't. I had a very. I jumped the wall many times. So I found it. I found the escape hole many times, and I got into one of my saving graces was I got into music. Irish traditional music and folk music while I was there. And I think that was my saving grace. I think my other saving grace at that time was I didn't drink. And I think if I did drink, I think I wouldn't be here speaking to you today.
Yeah.
Because the wall itself was 9 foot tall. There was a little,
So
there was
physically.
there was a little plinth uh, there was a little plinth which was halfway down the wall. So if you navigated yourself perfectly, you were able to navigate the wall. But then you had to run the security detail, and if the
It was like
security caught you,
prison.
you were out in your ear anyway. It was like prison, right? The only thing that they didn't have was
Oh my
dogs. They had
God.
everything else, but they didn't have dogs.
So
Yeah, yeah.
you did 2 years, but you said
I
but
did.
you were
I
7
did.
years and you were at some point you actually were um you know proselytizing, preaching, whatever they call it with the priest. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. So to get to that, I came home during the summer of 1989, um, and basically I said that was it. I'm not going back. I'm going to change my career. I'm going to do something else. And then my stuff stayed in the garage. My dad didn't kind of really speak to me for about 6 months. It was silence was the
it was your exile.
psychological form of
Yeah.
torture. I was exiled even in my own home. And I thought, to pardon the expression, fuck this. I need to prove to beyond a shadow of a doubt that I don't have a calling, that I don't have a vocation, that really God doesn't exist anyhow. But in order to do that, I needed to actually put my big guy pants on and go back to what I described as probably one of the hardest, toughest
Hell.
seminaries that the hell on hell, hell
Yeah.
on hell, hell on hell, right? Because these guys were the Royal Marines of preparation for priesthood.
Mm.
If if you could survive this seminary, you were absolutely made for life because they were hardballs. They were absolutely hardballs. And my reason for going back was to prove two things. One, I didn't have a vocation, and secondly, I wanted somebody else to tell my dad rather than me that what I was telling was the truth. I didn't have a vocation. So I went back in 1990, shaved my head, wore black clothes. I was officially a monk for the next 4 years in the seminary. And I thought to myself, I'm going to go here, right? And by October, they're going to see through me. They're going to see I'm a pile of shit. And they're just going to say, listen, thanks, but no thanks. We really appreciate your commitment, but I think you should go off and do
You were
something
kind of
else with your
trying
life.
to almost like, okay, I'm going to do this, but they're just going to make the decision for
But they're just going to
me.
see it, but because this is what they do, right? This is what they do. This is what they specialize in. These were the master. These were the master intuitives, right? They could
I can't
see
say
you.
I don't want to do this, but if somebody who's the expert, the person in
The
charge
expert.
says, "Oh, yeah," then it's
Yeah.
okay. Then it might be better. It might be okay.
So I did. So I did. I went and I thought to myself, I won't fully unpack all my stuff, right? Because I know I'm going to be home by October, and it's going to be cool, right? I'll go home. I'll say, look, I did my best, right? But these guys are saying I don't have the kahunas for it, so that's fine.
Yeah.
I'll go off and do something
Good
else with
plan.
my life,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, good plan. That was my plan. Now, October came and went, and Christmas came and went of 1919, and I thought to myself, it's not happened yet. Why haven't they not told me that I'm not worth it? So I went to Easter the following year and then finished my first year. And by that first year, I thought to myself, maybe I've been wrong all along. Maybe I do have a vocation. Maybe I was seeing this the wrong way. Maybe they do know what they're talking about it, and maybe I need to change my mindset around to thinking that actually maybe I can actually do this. I can maybe be a priest, because obviously they see something in me that maybe at this moment in time I can't see myself. But I'll just go
Yeah.
with the flow. I'll just go with the flow. So I went with the flow. First year went into the second year. Second year went into the third year. And I thought, it's good, having experienced the 2 years in Maynooth, right?
It's a cakewalk. Yeah.
It was a cakewalk, and it got easier the more years you spent there because they were less hard on you, right? Still psychologically tough, but less hard. I grew a pair of kahunas. So by the third year, everything was going swimmingly well, and then on Mother's Day, 1990. 1993. One of my good friends took his own life in the seminary.
Yeah, take it. That's intense.
And my whole world fell apart. And I think the worlds of everybody in there fell apart. Michael had some, difficulty in terms of his own life and his own personal life, particularly with his own mental health. And he kept that hidden, and he kept that hidden from us that knew him. But he wrote a Mother's Day card to his mum on the Saturday, which she got on the Monday, 24 hours after she found out that he had taken his life. And he just said, "Mum, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please forgive me." And I love you. That's what was written in the card. And my whole world fell apart after that. Then. The game was up. The game was a bogey. I just wanted to get the hell out of there. And the best way to do that was just finish my year and get out. But there was no support. There was a little bit of counselling, a little bit of chat, a little bit of spiritual direction, but there was nothing like the trauma support that you needed. So I experienced probably quite a lot of trauma, and as we all did during that time. But there was nobody to talk to. It was kind of brushed under the carpet. There was an investigation, a police investigation, and an inquest, and and all that kind of stuff that had to take its natural course. But all the while we were all walking around here with
Yeah.
pain and bereavement and suffering and trauma that wasn't dealt with at all. So 11th of June 1994, in front of 314 priests, 14 bishops, and an archbishop was ordained a priest for the diocese on the 11th of June, on the same day as my mum and dad's wedding anniversary. Came home to rapturous celebration, celebrated my first mass in the community on the Sunday to a packed house, 2,500 people came out. I believe even some of my ancestors rose from the dead just to be at the service that particular evening. I definitely saw my ancestors standing at the back. Everybody was there. Very soon after that, I got my first allocation in terms of a parish, and I just went off and started my ministry.
So sorry about your friend too. That is intense. Um, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. So you ministered for how long?
Yeah, it was
I
difficult.
think might be a little bit of delay, folks here. So how long did you minister after that, Seamus? I'm not sure if you're hearing me or not.
Well, yeah, no, I can hear you. I can hear you loud and clear. But I ministered for about 15 months. 15 months after that, but I use the example that it's like you're going out with somebody for 7 years, and you uh, you run off to the Whitechapel in Las Vegas. And
Yeah, you're freezing up a little bit,
put
and
a ring
I'm
on
not
it,
hearing you.
and yeah, can you hear me? Okay.
I can now. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, after 7 years, got ordained. It was equivalent to going away to the little Whitechapel and getting married. And the next day you turn around to your and you wake up and you go, "What the hell have I just done? What the hell have I just done?"
Right?
It was early as that, and then you suppress that thought or that feeling because you can't be having it.
Yeah.
You just got ordained 24 hours ago. You just can't be having that feeling, right? You just can't be having it.
What do
Um,
you? I mean, I mean, I imagine that at that point I mean, you've just gone through this multiple traumatic situations, but this is all you've ever known. This is the
yeah,
only person that you know how to be, even as much
yeah,
as you think I want to be something more or different or not here. What does it even look like? How do you even
yeah.
fathom?
So I didn't even want to go there with that thought process because that would just be madness. Because I now find myself in a career that I could never leave. I was in for life. Priesthood was for life, not just for Christmas. You suddenly just couldn't say one morning, no, I just want to go off and do something else. That wasn't an option. So I just had to, get four square behind it and do the best that I could. So the
So
first
how did you? Yeah, how did you?
Yeah, the first parish I got was a rural parish, and no disrespect if any of the residents of that particular parish are listening in this afternoon.
It's not you, parish people. It's not
It's
you.
not you parish people, but I lived in a parish house that no two bits of it went the same way. So if the front door was like that and the back door was like that, so it was slowly sinking into the ground. So
Oh,
it was
which
like it was like staying in Hobbiton, and it was so it was
Frodo.
yeah, yeah. I expected Frodo to come around the corner every minute, or I would shite myself if Gandalf suddenly rounded the corner in his white steel. I wouldn't be surprised, but
You shall not pass.
you shall not move. Yeah, you shall not leave this house ever. You shall die in this house.
Oh,
So that was my first house. The water coming from the taps was all brown because it
oh,
wasn't purified.
mm.
And I was like, again, throwback to 7 years previously when I first entered that cell. It was like a bigger cell. That's what it felt like. It was like a bigger cell, right? Damp, not
Well,
heated.
you had running water. It just
I
was
had
brown.
look, I had running water. It was brown. Baths were not an option. Showers, I didn't have one.
Oh.
It was something out of medieval Ireland, really. It was. It was. I think even the hobbits would have had a better quality of life than I did. So I struggled with that. I also struggled with ministry, and the people at the parish were wonderful, and they were wonderful supportive. But I think what was happening in me was I had for 7 years previously carried around all that vicarious trauma, all that trauma that I experienced, all those feelings and emotions I had experienced. And the thing about it is that if you suppress a rubber ball as deep as you can and as far as you can down underneath the water, someday it's going to explode up in your face. And it got to a stage for me where, and I have to say, Beth, I wasn't the best priest, and probably I was a shy priest, really, to be honest. I didn't really begin to believe the message or the tales that I was telling, and I saw it in a very corporate kind of field where thousands of pounds of money would be handed over freely by the populace and by the population of the community every month and every year would go into the church coffers, and then the church could decide how they wanted to spend that money. And there was poverty in the community. The people were struggling in the community, but yet rather than spending it in the community, they spent it on building projects within the community. So it all became very weird and very strange. And I just found myself with a real deep sense of imposter syndrome. And I struggled with that. I struggled with ministry. I struggled with the effects that ministry had on me. So the effects that, for example, uh, a baptism would have on me, I'd be low for days afterwards after baptizing a child, because I knew
Why?
as a celibate minister I wouldn't be able to have my own. I
Mm.
wouldn't be able to hold my own child. I really struggled with that. I really struggled with, you know, being at somebody's side, during the last moments of life on this earth, where I knew that if when it came to my time, that nobody would be around my bed, that I would
Mm.
probably more or less die alone without any family around me. I
That's
struggled with it.
heart wrenching. That is
Yeah,
heart wrenching.
yeah. I struggled. I
It's
struggled
heart
with.
wrenching to hear. I can't even imagine if that's what I'm feeling, right? That's
Yeah,
what I'm.
yeah. And I struggled with the after effects and the aftermath of trauma that I may have had come across. And as a priest, we were required to go to all calls where there had been sudden accidents or sudden death.
Mm.
And I still remember to this day the funeral I did. The awful couple who experienced the death of two children,
Mm.
who prematurely died, and I'll never forget the heart wrenching cries that mother
Mm.
did at the graveside, and you come away from there without any degree of support, without any degree of anybody to talk to, without any degree of being able to process that, and eventually all that stuff
And you're
catches up.
still a human being.
And
You
I'm
of course are going through all of this stuff.
Yeah, so yeah, so I experienced all that, and just one morning I woke up and I just didn't want to do it anymore. It's as simple as that. One morning I simply opened my eyes one morning and just wanted to escape from this planet. I just wanted to escape from what I was doing. I actually wanted to exit this planet altogether, if I was honest with you. So I just got in my car and left. And my intention was to drive myself off the planet.
But you
Yeah.
didn't.
And it didn't. And I'll be honest with you, it was the first time I experienced a kind of a real divine intervention, because I cannot remember. I cannot remember that drive that I took. I cannot remember where I drove and how I drove and how long I drove for. all I can remember is I had a full tank of gas when I started and an empty tank by the time I pulled up outside my friend's house. And the first thing I said to him was, "Look, I need help." And I got help. You know, there was a bit of an SOS sent out for me. I got help and support. I was taken aside, psychologically debriefed for another period of 6 weeks by the diocese to find out why the program didn't work, what went on in here, what went on. In the same way, would you take a computer into a shop, right, and say, "Look, I've got a virus on this computer. Can you sort it out for me? And is it okay if I just leave it with you? Is it okay if I just leave it with you?" So I was left in the company of two of the top psychiatrists that the church had to offer, who really probed me without an anesthetic as to the reasons why I did what I did in the way that I did, and why ultimately the program of brainwashing didn't work in that regard. And that was painful because without an anesthetic, without that comfort, without somebody by your side, they literally lifted every rock. Every rock
Oh
was
my
lifted.
God.
Every single rock was lifted, going way back to the beginning. And at the end of that process, they candidly turned around and offered me the analysis of that assessment. And they really said, in our opinion, you didn't have the capacity to sustain a celibate priesthood, that you don't have the personality type for it.
So you're just a piece of shit, Seamus, because you couldn't handle it, is basically what it probably sounded like.
But
Like you're just
the irony bit, and here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. Here is the kicker, right? And this is what got me really pissed and angry, was that at three different stages during my career, my priestly career, psychological evaluation assessments were completed by the church, right? At the beginning, at the middle, and towards the end,
I
right?
remember you telling me that they were asking you a bunch of in the beginning, they would, you had to interview with the diocese to make sure that
To all that, and there would be a
all that
psychological
assessment, yeah.
profile done and all that assessment, and it's carried out in a clinical format and very much with the focus in on the answering the question: is this guy capable of sustaining this kind of ministry? Has he got the kahunas to be able to do it? Now, the irony was, and I've seen the reports, right? And the Catholic Church will probably deny that they ever existed because that's how they operate. But I've seen the reports and I've read the reports, and all the reports at those three junctures all said this guy doesn't have the kahunas to sustain the priesthood and should be gently guided in another direction.
Are you shitting me?
No, no.
Oh, so basically they were saying, the experts, yeah, we don't think this is the right path for this guy. And
No,
nobody said anything.
nobody said anything. Nobody said anything. In fact,
Why
the
do you
note,
think that is?
the notes in one of the reports actually passed it back to God, and the president of a particular college that will remain nameless had actually scribed on the report, "We leave it to God to work that one out."
What a bunch of chicken shits. What a bunch
Yeah,
of insecure, weak
yeah.
people. I'm
if
sorry,
if
but they
if
are.
if they had done what they did, and taken advisement from those reports and considered the reviews and considered the conclusions, then life for me would have been much different. So I had to go through a whole load of shit that was always going to end up with the same result.
But you know what, Seamus, and I know it's hard just to even say this, but I see this in my own past too. But
Yeah,
you would never have learned. You would have been a different person. You would
I
never be
would,
in my life.
I
You would
would,
never be in the lives of all these people that are out here supporting you, the people that are your family. It would have been completely different.
it
And
would.
this is what anybody should say about their, when everybody says, "Well, would you go back and change anything?" I wouldn't change a thing in my
I,
life. I
I,
had
I
some
wouldn't
shit
change a thing.
times because I like here.
Yeah, I wouldn't change a thing. I
Mm,
actually wouldn't change a thing, and that's probably really unbelievable to hear, given where I now stood. But it's because of those experiences that I've had, because of that life that I led, because of those things that I've seen, heard, and understood, and I understand about myself, that make me the person I am today. That
yes.
now I find myself in a place where I am happy, I am loved, I am cared for. I've got a wonderful family. I've got a wonderful wife. I've got wonderful grandchildren. I've got a wonderful career. But in order to get there, and again, I think this will be part two of our discussion. In order to get there, I had to go through, the dark night of the soul in order to get to where I am now. And because I've taken that journey, I can also support others to take that journey, and I'll be a guide on the side for them and love them and support them and care for them in a way that I never got or received, that enables them to take that journey successfully.
That is such an amazing segue. We knew when we got into this, folks, that this was going to be a two-parter. So I think this is a good place because there's a whole other story. We haven't even gotten to your journey from that moment that you decided, I'm going to be me. I'm going to take charge of my life, to how you got here. There's a whole other story there, folks, and it's just as amazing. I do want to jump into the comments here before we jump off. We are going to be wrapping up here shortly, and there will be a part two. In fact, as soon as I get off this call, Seamus, I'm going to send you my dates because I want you back as soon as possible, because this is just such a compelling story. And then your stuff today is compelling too. So I just want to go to the comments real quick and wrap up. But folks, if you have any final comments, we are going to be wrapping up in a few here, and because of the delay. So let's see. Trisha Lewis does say, this should be a film. I agree, Seamus. Well, you're briefly, because I don't want to get too much into it. Maybe by the time we bring you back for number 2, you'll be even closer to done. But you're writing your memoir right now. Aren't you?
I am a motivational memoir, actually. It's the story of my own journey, and the premise behind it is, I want to share the story. I want to share the story with people,
I love it.
Of where I got to where I got,
wait.
but also put in there little vignettes and little signposts in terms of, if you're feeling this, then you can do this, this, and this.
Brilliant. Yeah. It's going to be on my I'm going to be pre-ordering when you're out there.
Thank you.
Jenny Erickson, thanks for joining us. Jenny, she says, I'm gripped. I had a ton of work to do this afternoon, but I've downed tools and made a cuppa to listen intently. Thank you for joining us. As always, Jenny also was on the show a little over a month ago. Carolyn S. is speechless. So many parts of the journey, same. Must have been horrific. I think she's probably talking about your moment of walking through those doors. Carolyn says, that sounds like a hateful experience, Seamus. My heart breaks for what you went through. Stella says, wow, talk about interfering with another person's development, the father talking to the mother. Jenny says, we're still partway through the story, but I'm wondering how Seamus feels about his father shoehorning him down a path which Seamus had no say in. As a parent, I can't simply fathom. Jenny, we will address that in our next episode when Seamus can tell us, because it's not a pretty path. There's still some challenges that go on there, because you can imagine Seamus has already alluded to the fact that when you're out, you're basically shunned. Trisha says, music is a lifesaver. The story is extraordinary. Seamus, don't you play an instrument of some sort? And wasn't there a promise of some sort back when?
There was. I do play an instrument, and it's called the bodhrán, which is an Irish percussion instrument, and I'm pretty adept at that. Again, it's got its own story of how I got to that instrument.
Well, keep it handy.
Yeah,
maybe that's episode 3, but keep it handy for 2. If we have time, we'll definitely
will.
Out.
Definitely will. Love to.
Doris says, so many feelings and thoughts, don't know where to start. I think that is pretty much what we're all thinking right now. And Jenny agrees. Doris Walsh, me too. Carolyn is sending her condolences on your friend, and as well as Jenny. So sorry. And Stella Scott says, this horrid story just reconfirms all my thoughts about the Catholic Church. Much love to you, Seamus Corry. And of course, we mean, I mean, the powers, the structure, the politics of it, not the people, 100% brainwashing. Yes. Doris says, wow, the strength of your will and character is incredible. Yes. To go through all of that and come out of it with a sparkle in your eye, a smile, and a sense of humor is mind-boggling. You are a special human being. Underscore that 1,000 times.
Love you guys.
Doris says, our past experiences shape who we are now. Yes. Yes, as hard as it was, I helped my uncle write a book. He overcame much addiction due to his abuse as a child, sexual, physical, emotional, and he would say the same thing, that he is who he is today, and he can't change anything. So, Doris says, "When's part two?" If we can get you in, I'm through May. I think I'm booked, but if I can get you in early June, you're there.
Love that.
And Jenny,
Yeah, I'm
Jenny
got it.
says we need
I'm
part
in.
two. Carolyn says, "I love you, brother. Please share more." She's ordering your book. Jenny says, "Carolyn, I'm definitely buying the book, and what a privilege to say I know the author." Yes, same. And Carolyn agrees. Seamus Corry is a miracle.
Bless you.
Seamus, before we wrap up, tell us, what do we need to know about how to get in touch with you? What's the best way? Is there anything coming up that we need to know about? Of course, everybody, as usual, I will put all of Seamus's contact info in the comments.
Yeah, thank you, Beth. And listen, I just want to thank you for creating this wonderful space this afternoon to be able to share my story. And and I share it honestly, authentically, and with humility. And it's a pleasure to know you, and I honor you, and honor the space that I find myself in this afternoon in sharing my story with you. Um, I suppose the best place to find me, I'm on LinkedIn for those of a LinkedIn kind of persona, and please connect with me there. I created my own digital footprint last year with the wonderful Gary Lynch. Gary, if you're listening this afternoon, fantastic, my friend. He's created a wonderful website for me. It's available at seamuscorry.co.uk. Check me out there. On that website, you'll find links to my podcast series. You find links to resources that I've been honored to share and know the authors of. There are links to other help and supportive organizations. And I will say that if you yourself who are listening today have been triggered by any way in the sharing of my own story, please reach out to me or to a supportive organization and get that help and support for yourself. And yeah, I'm also I kind of I'm all over social media, right, Beth? I'm
Yeah,
Facebook, I'm LinkedIn. Uh,
brilliantly.
Thank you again. Down not to me, but to the amazing work that Gary Lynch, my digital media guru, has done. He's just a magician. He is definitely a magician, and he keeps me right. And in fact, in some cases, with the development of AI, it can take 5 years off my life. If you've seen my latest reel, it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. And he's fixed my nose as well, which is a story in its own right.
Your
So
nose is
so
beautiful.
so many stories. So I was going to say so many noses, so many stories. Not enough time to share them all. But that's where you'll find me.
Awesome. Seamus, thank you so much
You're
for being
welcome.
a guest on the Thirsty Professional now and in the future. Like I said, I knew from the moment that we met on the Founders Network, which I've talked about here. I'll also put a link in for that. But we went on a networking call, I think in like
Yeah,
December or
yeah,
January.
it was
And
something like that. Yeah.
yeah, a little 6-minute breakout room. And I knew, I'm not even kidding you. I knew as soon as you got the first sentence out of your mouth that you were something special. And it's not
Thank you.
because of your journey, it's because of how you dealt with your journey and how you share your story with such raw, open, transparent, really from the soul authenticity. You really care about people. Like I said, you are the reason. This kind of candor is why I wanted to start the show. You really care about people. You're not afraid to be your full self. I absolutely love that about you. And I know all of your fans do too, your friends and your loved ones. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
So
Beth. Beth, I can't be anybody else. I can just be me. And you either love me or hate me. You take your pick. But for those who have listened in today and tuned in today, I appreciate your comments, and I love you all to bits, and wish you all a wonderful Easter.
thank you. Right back at you. All right. Next week, my very special guest is going to be Wandana Puranik. So, Wandana is a thinkfluencer. Ooh, I love that. Idea architect and a business builder, and also a great title creator, if I must say. And I love titles. I'm very, very adamant about my own titles. So for 25 years, she has built brands, scaled businesses, turned chaos into clarity, working for huge clients like Revlon, Procter & Gamble, Campbell's, no relation. She's a best-selling author. She's a TEDx and an international speaker. She's founder of Active Ingredients Inc. And she also founded What She Said, which is a posse of bad bitches doing great things. Ooh, that sounds fun. That
I'm
sounds good.
listening to that one. I'm listening to that one.
Wandana helps ambitious humans do the impossible, which is to figure out where to go when nothing's working and how to win when the rules don't apply. Your mind called. It's ready for an upgrade, and Wandana Puranik is here to make it happen. All right. Thank you, everybody, so much for tuning into this amazing, amazing episode. If you are watching on LinkedIn, please make sure you connect with myself and my amazing guest. If you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Any additional questions or feedback or comments, leave them in the comments, or if you can, DM myself or Seamus. And then congratulate yourself for getting real, just like Seamus has, about your career, your purpose, and your passion. So now, Miss Hattie Arbuckle, my lovely hat, Mr. Seamus Corry, and I are going to bid you a fond farewell. Take it easy.